Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another episode of The Spin with our friend Mike Corrigan. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing just great. Glad to be back from New Zealand.
Yeah, it sounded like you had a pretty eventful trip. You want to share that with our listeners?
I went down just after Christmas, and I start on the South Island. I do about half my time there, and then mid-trip I head up to the North Island, and what I experienced was initially high water, but I could find clear water. But as time went on, hurricane, or what they call cyclone in the Southern Hemisphere, Gabrielle, trashed parts of the North Island to the point where I had to alter my plans almost on a daily basis. And I ended up losing only the one day, believe it or not, but having to travel south instead of north to get off of the country, and lost a couple of days. But here we are.
Yeah, and so you're back home where it's nice and cold, which probably means you're heading back to the Vice, right?
Exactly. Yes, I've at this point in time, I certainly got plans for a lot of musky flies. Where I live right now, we have probably 20 to 30 different species we can target. We were out in Western Canada, and it was pretty much trout out there, all the different species, right from cutthroat through to bull. But in Central Canada here, you pick a species and you target it, and muskie has been my go-to fish for the last 5 or 6 summers. I fish them from a 9-foot pontoon boat, and we can get into some pretty small lakes, and these fish have not been heavily bothered, so it's kind of special.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too. It's always interesting to talk to people that chase muskie, because down here in the mid-Atlantic where I am, people chase them in the wintertime, but that would pretty much be impossible for you unless you like the ice fish.
Right. And there is a closed season on muskie up here as well in some places. So they get rested for a portion of the year. And our season here doesn't open until, I think it's the third Saturday of June.
Oh, wow.
So even though ice out will probably be March or April, they've still got, the spawning and everything else. And people, aren't supposed to bother them.
Got it. But that dovetails well, with your tip, right? Because you're telling me you wanted to share some tips for working with yarn, because I've seen some of your pictures, and yarn is a big part of the musky flies that you create.
Right. I started tying with yarn probably 6 years ago, and I was quite surprised at how small of flies we could throw at muskies. And I'm talking muskies. The biggest one I've got is mid-40s. And these are flies that are no bigger than 6 inches and created out of just simple yarn that you can pick up in any craft store. And all I do is cut 10-inch sections and use a dog or a cat brush to take the braiding out, I guess, if you want to call it that, to the point where it's basically raw material again. And it has been extremely effective. In fact, other than the last couple of years, I've probably caught over 90% of my muskie on a orange, two-tone orange fly that I'll include in the video.
Very neat. I would imagine too, the great thing about doing that is you don't have to worry about a particular staple length, because you just cut the yarn to the length that you need and brush it out, right?
Good question, Marvin. You can card yarn as long as you want, or at least cut the yarn as long as you want, but you will end up with a 5 to 6 inch section. It does not card any longer than that.
I gotcha. And so does it just kind of fall apart when you try to brush it? It just kind of separates into about 5 to 6 inch chunks?
Exactly. Well, you end up, you start carding at the tips, and as you card, you end up with mounds and mounds of dubbing. But if you go any longer than 5 or 6 inches, it just all ends up in your dog brush.
Got it. And, want to thank our friends at Norvise for generously sponsoring this series. And we've been bringing them to you twice a month since late last year. We're going to do that through March. And Mike, I know that you're going to be on the show circuit. So where can folks find you and see you spinning up stuff on the Norvise?
I will be down at the Great Waters Expo at Hamline University in St. Paul. I've been invited down there for the last 5 years now. And so I'll be in the back area with the tires. I've got to know quite a few of the people at the show, but also a lot of people come back year after year looking for some tips. But everybody's intrigued with the Norvise. And last year, CBS did a piece on me tying with the Norvise, so it was well displayed, and people are generally intrigued by it. There's not a lot of Norvises in that part of the U.S., certainly not in Canada either, but the one I tie on is probably one of the originals that it might not have been number one, but it wasn't far from that. Great vice, and really it's been problem-free.
Yeah, very, very neat. And what's the date of that event so folks can be on the lookout for it if they're in the area and come check it out?
That starts on March 17th at Hamline, like I mentioned, to the 19th. So it's Friday through to Sunday.
Awesome. And, folks, like we've done for all the other in the Spin series, Mike's going to put together a YouTube video, and we're going to drop a link to that in the show notes to this episode, so you'll be able to see the tip live in video on the Norvise YouTube channel. And folks, if you're close to a fly fishing show this season, I encourage you to get out and check them out. If it's warm enough in your part of the world to start fishing, we've got daffodils blooming in the mid-Atlantic already. We're going to be almost 80 degrees later this week. You ought to go out and catch a few. And if you don't have a show and you can't fish, then you need to tie a few. Tight lines, everybody.
Exactly.
Tight lines, Mike.